12 years ago, the first indie horror franchise was born.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Today we are playing the scariest game of all creation. Probably never heard of it. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's.
What's up, YouTube? What's going on? Corey Kinchin here, and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Top of the morning to you ladies, my name is Jacksepticeye and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's.
And it all starts with this game. Hey guys, FNAF 22 here with our video, and in today's video, if you couldn't tell, today, August 8th of 2026, is Five Nights at Freddy's 12-year anniversary. So I thought, why not do what we always do best on anniversaries? Why not do a FNAF 1 12-year retrospective? So we're going to be going back and looking into Five Nights at Freddy's 1, looking into the lore, looking into the gameplay, and looking into the general scare factor of the game and why it made Five Nights at Freddy's a multi-million-dollar franchise. Why don't we jump straight into this retrospective? Let's kick things off with the lore. Now, obviously, Five Nights at Freddy's 1's lore isn't very crazy. It's the very first game in the franchise, but verbatim, what it is you're a new night guard watching over a pizzeria with a bunch of, like, Chuck E. Cheese styled animatronics. You've got the three main guys on stage, which are Freddy Fazbear, the main singer of the group, Bonnie the Bunny, his right-hand man with the guitar, and Chica the Chicken, who doesn't really have an instrument. And then you've got your fourth and everybody's favorite animatronic hiding out in Pirate's Cove, Foxy the Pirate Fox, who is at this time out of order. And these animatronics will move around during the night that you're watching them, making sure that no threats or thieves are sneaking into the building. So it's just like a basic night guard job. You're just watching these animatronics. They'll come, to and from your doors. Just make sure you stay safe. Nothing crazy. You just want to make sure nobody's breaking in, and you want to make sure nothing bad is happening in this vicinity. Just seems like a basic horror game plotline. But then you finally find all these small secret details that start to unfold, showing this isn't just you being a night guard of a pizzeria. There is a case of homicide happening in the building. We get to see through different newspaper clippings and other small details throughout the entire pizzeria that 5 children were murdered in this pizzeria by the owner, William Afton, and stuffed into these animatronic suits. So these animatronics aren't moving around to make sure the building is safe and make sure nobody gets in. They're moving around because they're being possessed by spirits. Now, honestly, the lore and story for this game isn't very crazy. Obviously, it's the very first game in the franchise, but a lot of us FNAF fans do know that Scott Cawthon thought this would just be a one-off game to make him a few bucks here and there. He did not think this would turn into a multi-million-dollar franchise, so he didn't make the lore very, very crazy or very intense because he didn't really know what was going to happen. So, obviously, the lore isn't too crazy. It gets way more expanded as we go on, but this is still some really, really cool lore to kick off the FNAF franchise. A lot of people remember this game for the lore, and I still remember a lot of YouTubers and other creators going back and seeing all these little details they missed, or seeing the details in real time and just being so shocked on how crazy the lore was, even though the lore wasn't even thought out at that point. So very, very cool to see. And obviously we've got our 4 original characters, some of the most iconic characters in the horror gaming franchise. We've got Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica, Foxy, all that great stuff, some of the most iconic animatronic characters of all time. But something else that ties into the lore and into the characters of this game is the 5th hidden character. Now, as you're checking all the cameras in FNAF 1, you're doing good. You're a night guard. You're just looking around, making sure your job is well. You want to go home and make your $7 a pay. You notice that a poster has changed. The poster is no longer the normal poster you had seen many, many times before. Now it is a face of a golden Freddy Fazbear. You take your camera monitor down, and there he is, crumpled up into the side of your office, golden Freddy. Now, we all know Golden Freddy is a very iconic character from this franchise, as well as has some of the most lore in this entire franchise. If you guys don't know, he's my favorite character of all time. I'm a D1 Golden Freddy Glazer, but either way, Golden Freddy has so much significance to this story. Obviously, he is the 5th kid that was murdered during the MCI, the Missing Kids incident, and he was stuffed away into the Golden Freddy suit. You know, I don't know a lot about his lore nowadays. I think he's being possessed by more than one spirit, but what we do know is that he is out for vengeance. He is the vengeful spirit, and he will take you out and completely crashing your game thinking you are the one that killed him. So once again, guys, like I said, the lore for this game isn't too crazy since it is the very first game in the franchise and he didn't know where he'd be going from this point, but there are still some really cool like bits and pieces of lore you can catch here, you know, with all the animatronics, with like the posters and stuff on the walls. Very cool. I love the lore of this game. This game was just so ominous at the time, but of course you can't just talk about the lore. The biggest part of playing a video game is the gameplay. Now, I know we kind of touched on the gameplay in the last section of lore, but this gameplay is very simple, but has a very ominous loop to it. You are forced to stay seated in your office watching cameras and making sure the animatronics don't come too close, because once again, if they see you, they're going to think you're a burglar or a thief or some kind of person who should not be in there, obviously thinking you're William. But yeah, so you have to stay seated in your office, you have to check the cameras, see where they're moving around, and then if they get to your doors, you can shine a light to see them and slam the door shut on their face so they do not get you. It's a very basic loop. It's one of the most simple loops in gaming history, but it was just so iconic at the time. Obviously, going back is not as fun playing it. Like when you go back to it compared to something like Secret of the Mimic or Security Breach, some of the newest installments in this franchise, it just seems like a very boring loop. But back in the day, back in 2014, this was insane. There was no games like this where you stayed seated in an office and you couldn't really protect yourself. You couldn't run. You were literally just there to make sure you can survive against all these animatronics. Now, for somebody who's maybe never played the original FNAF game, you're probably thinking, well, I'm just gonna shut my doors and, you know, they can never get me. Foxy can't run at me. Bonnie and Chica can't get me. Nobody can get me. I'm completely safe. But of course, this game does run on a power meter. There is a meter of power that if you run out, you just don't want to run out of power. You do not want to run out of the power. So yeah, guys, the gameplay of this game is very basic, but at the time, like I said, back in 2014, this was very new and very unsettling, very ominous. Like, there wasn't a lot of games that played like this where you couldn't protect yourself, so it was very unique back in the good old days of gaming. And of course, you know, it doesn't just stay like that the whole time. You know, the first night, maybe you get Bonnie or Chica, and then every night the animatronics start to get a little bit more aggressive to where you can get like Foxy and Freddy. One thing I do critique about this game is Freddy Fazbear is supposed to be seen as like the leader of the gang. He's supposed to be kind of seen as like the scariest animatronic because he doesn't move for a good chunk of the game. He only starts moving towards the end of the night. I just wish he had a little bit more to do in the game. All you do is kind of stalk him down on the cameras, and then once he laughs near your office, you just make sure you shut the door. If you don't, he will sneak in and get you. But it does just seem like he doesn't have a lot to do in this game. I would prefer that he did a little bit more, but either way, not a big deal. The gameplay, like I said, for 2014 was insane. Such a great gameplay loop for the time, but of course, something that comes with a horror game, something that every horror game needs, is the scare factor. Now, of course, this is the very first game in this, like, 14-game franchise. So, obviously, with the first game, you wouldn't think it would be very scary. And looking back into it, like I said, 12 years later, it is not scary at all. We've got brand new games like free roam games where you literally have to run from these animatronics. So you would think this game is not scary at all. We've got way more scarier games down the pipeline. But if we take it back to 12 years ago, when this game first came out, this game was terrifying. You literally just start in an office. The ambiance and the sound design in this game is so good. It just makes you really feel like you're sitting in that office, in this dark office. You've got a fan running next to you, and then you've got the phone ringing. The phone guy's gonna talk to you. This game is terrifying. For some reason, it's just so scary to think you were stuck in this office with these giant, like 6 to 7 feet tall animatronics chasing you down. And another thing I feel like that doesn't get talked about very much with the scare factor of this game is just some of the camera shots. Some of the shots on this camera when you're flicking through seeing Bonnie, seeing Chica are absolutely terrifying. Like, some of these I would not expect. They literally catch you off guard, like Bonnie hanging out in the closet just staring right at you, or in the endo repair room. It's just so terrifying. I'll flash a bunch of like the super creepy like stills on the screen, but some of these camera shots are amazing. I wish FNAF would go back when they do their camera style gameplay, and I wish they'd do some more ominous, creepy stuff like this, because these were terrifying. Now, like I said, this isn't scary nowadays. Looking back, it's not very scary, but if you've never played FNAF 1 before, when you're jumping in, I would advise you do it, like, without watching any videos, any tutorials, because you just need to feel how unsettling this game is. The animatronics are terrifying. There's lots of random noises that'll play throughout the night, like the pots banging in the kitchen, or the weird, like, breathing noises that Bonnie and Chica make. I'm telling you, this game, 12 years ago, was terrifying. It was one of the scariest horror games on the market, and like I said, looking back now, it's not as scary, and honestly, some of the new games might be even less scary because their jump scares are just not as, like, off-catching or not as terrifying. I would think this game does sound design so well, and that is one of the things I miss from, like, the OG days of FNAF. I miss the sound design. I've seen lots of YouTubers talk about this, so I won't wail on it too long, but some of the sound design and just sound features we hear in these old games are so good. Like the jump scare noises, all the random miscellaneous noises you hear in the background were so peak, so amazing, so terrifying. It just makes me so sad that we don't get great sound design like that in the newer games. But either way, just a beautiful way to look back at FNAF. All of these things are so terrifying, and this is what made FNAF such a big franchise. This is what made FNAF a multi-million-dollar franchise. And obviously, if we just look through our little, crystal ball and we look into the future of FNAF, we can tell it became way bigger than Scott thought it would be. We get millions of merchandise pieces. We have 2 movies now, working on a 3rd one, and of course thousands of different books down the pipeline. It's just crazy to see how big this franchise got from the very first game. So yeah, guys, thanks for checking out this video, but I hope you guys don't mind if I just sit here, relax, rewind the clock, and reminisce on the good old days.